Hello, welcome. This is our class number 8. Today we are going to correct our list number 2, okay? So, how did you guys find the list? Was it too difficult? Was it average? Was it too easy? Okay? So if possible, give me some feedback so that I can best adapt the questions here for you, okay? Now let's begin the correction then. So, question number 1. Complete with used to. Remember, used to is something we did in the past, a habit, and that we don't do anymore in the present, right? At the moment. So, example, I don't smoke anymore, but I 20 cigarettes a day. So nowadays, currently, I don't smoke anymore. But in the past, I used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day. Okay? So this was something I used to do in the past. I did frequently in the past, but don't do anymore. Now, letter A. Daniela sings very well, but she didn't in the shower. She didn't used to sing. She didn't used to sing in the shower, right? Remember, we have to adapt the verb to use because we are already using the negative form with the auxiliary verb did, right? So didn't used to sing. Do you guys remember we don't have any difference in the pronunciation, right? I used to sing, Daniela didn't use to sing, okay? The pronunciation with ed in the end of the word, of the verb, has no difference, okay? With or without it, okay? Now, letter B. Renato doesn't exercise these days, but did, okay, so now it is a question, right? Did he used to exercise? Did Renato used to exercise? So, these days, he doesn't exercise anymore. But did he used to exercise? Okay, so in the past, did he used to exercise? Okay? Letter C. I don't travel very often, but I every month. So nowadays, I don't travel very often. But, and in the past? In the past, I used to travel every month. So nowadays, I don't travel very often, but I used to travel every month, okay? I know you study a lot, but, so nowadays, currently, you study a lot. And how about the past? So, but, did you used to study this much? So nowadays, currently, you study very much. But, did you used to study this much in the past? Okay? Now, they are not together now, but they used to be a couple. Okay, so they are not together now, but they used to be a couple. So probably we are talking about ex-boyfriends and girlfriends, right? So they used to be a couple, but they are not together anymore. All right? Now, we live in Canada now, but we... So this one has to be negative, see? So we live in Canada now, but we didn't used to live in Canada. But we didn't used to live in Canada. Now you may ask, teacher, what if I did it in the affirmative form? For example, we live in Canada now, but we used to live in Canada. You see, that makes no sense. The idea of used to is always to present something that is different now from what it was in the past, okay? So if we live in Canada now, we are going to say used to means that in the past we didn't used to live in Canada, okay? Used to is something that was frequent, was a habit in the past, but which is not anymore, okay? We don't do it very often or at all anymore, okay? So it is important to see this. Another way that you could see that it was required, the negative form here, is because of this but here, right? So we live in Canada now, but, okay, so here I am going to oppose ideas, okay? But is used to oppose ideas, okay? So they have to be opposite. Now, number 2. Complete the sentences using many, much, few, little, fewer, less, more, or enough. Okay? Letter A. There are 2 people here today. There are too many people here today. Was it possible to say there are too few people here today? It's also possible, okay? So if you guys wrote few, would also be correct. Usually, the idea is more frequent with many, but few would also be correct, okay? So there are too many people here today. There are too few people here today. Also possible, okay? Letter B. There's 2 parking in São Paulo. Now, parking, is it countable or uncountable? Parking is a non-count noun, correct? Non-count, I cannot count. So I say there's too little parking in São Paulo. Was it possible to say too much? It was also possible, but that's not really the idea, right? The idea is usually something negative. When we use too, we say that something is too little, too much, means that it is more than a good amount, okay? So it's usually a negative way of stating something, okay? So there's too little parking in São Paulo. Too much would be a good thing, okay? So it's not so often used, okay? Letter C. There should be subway lines in Rio. So subway lines is something I can count, right? 1 line, 2 lines, 1 subway line, 2 subway lines. So there should be more, right? There should be more. There are too few subway lines. There should be more subway lines in Rio, okay? So remember, more I can use both with count nouns and non-count nouns, okay? Letter D. There aren't museums to visit in Paris, okay? So this is obviously not true, right? This is completely false, but just to practice, there aren't enough museums to visit in Paris. There aren't enough museums to visit in Paris, okay? Absolutely false, right? Letter E. There are 2 buses at this time. I can't get one. So look at the end here. I can't get one. So the idea is there are too few buses, okay? Too few buses. If there were too many buses, then I would be able to get one. But the person here says, I can't get one. So the idea is there are too few buses, okay? Too many is also grammatically correct, but not in this sentence here because it would make no sense, okay? The idea is opposite. Now, there should be traffic. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Do you guys know what I can't stand means? So this is a phrasal verb. When you say I can't stand something, means you cannot tolerate. You cannot put up with something. Okay, so another phrasal verb. Can't stand is synonym with tolerate and put up with. Okay, I can't put up with traffic. So means I do not tolerate traffic. Okay. So there should be less traffic. Why less and not fewer? Because traffic is uncountable. Traffic is a non-count noun, right? So we say less traffic. Letter G. Only cars could reduce the pollution. Only fewer cars, right? Only fewer cars could reduce the pollution. Okay, so there should be fewer cars. It's another way of saying this, okay? There should be fewer cars. Only fewer cars could reduce the pollution, okay? Letter H. There's too noise in the streets, okay? Noise, is it countable or uncountable? Uncountable. So we say there's too much noise in the streets. Is it possible to say too little? It's possible, grammatically correct. But not the idea, right? To say there's too little noise in the streets doesn't make much sense, right? It would be a good thing, too little noise, right? So we use too much noise to stress that this is a problem, okay? Letter I. There isn't public transportation. So public transportation is also non-count, okay? Uncountable. So there isn't Enough, remember, enough I can use both with count nouns and non-count nouns, okay? So there isn't enough public transportation, so it is a problem. There should be more public transportation, okay? There should be more. There isn't enough, there should be more, okay? You could also say there is too little public transportation. All these are adverbs we use with non-count nouns, okay? Now, number 3, turn these sentences into the indirect form. So we have here a WH question, right? Direct, and I want you guys to turn them to the indirect form. Again, why is this important? Why is this important to learn how to ask indirect questions? Because this is a very polite way of asking for information, and also a polite way to ask people to do things for us, okay? Now, where do you live? This is the direct question, right? So, can you tell me where you live? Where you live, okay? So I do not need the auxiliary verb anymore here, do, because remember, the question is already at the beginning here. Can you is already a question structure. So, can you tell me where you live? B. Who is that girl? Who is that girl? Do you know who that girl is? Do you know who that girl is? Very simple, right? Verb to be. It was before the subject here to make the question. And now it goes back after the subject, right? Because the question is already at the beginning. Do you know? Now, letter C. When did the flight arrive? When did the flight arrive? So it's important to remember that now it is in the simple past. So we have to modify the verb and conjugate it in the simple past, right? So could you tell me when the flight arrived? Could you tell me when the flight arrived? Letter D. What time does the next train leave? What time does the next train leave? Do you know what time the next train leaves? Do you know what time the next train leaves? Okay, very simple, right? Simple present. We used does here to ask the question, and when we have here the affirmative part of the question, we just have to conjugate the verb for he, she, it, because the next train equals it, right? Letter E. Where can I find a subway station? Where can I find a subway station? So here we have the verb can, right? Can does not need an auxiliary verb to ask the question, so we are just going to place it back in the affirmative position, right? So can you tell me where I can find a subway station? Can you tell me where I can find a subway station? Okay, so can I? Question. I can, affirmative, right? Letter F. How late do the stores stay open? How late do the stores stay open? Do you understand this question? It means what time do the stores close, right? What time do the stores close? Or how late do they stay open? So, could you tell me how late the stores stay open? Okay, this is very simple. When we have do, right, we just have to remove it because the verb doesn't need extra conjugation, right? So, could you tell me how late the stores stay open? G. How much did you pay for your sunglasses? How much did you pay for your sunglasses? So, can you tell me how much you paid for your sunglasses? Again, here we have the simple past, right? Did you in the question, and we have to turn the verb to pay to its simple past form. So it is paid, right? How much you paid for your sunglasses. And letter H. What are the best places to visit? What are the best places to visit? Do you know what the best places to visit are? Do you know what the best places to visit are? Okay, so again, simple present, right, with verb to be. We just have to place it back to the affirmative position, right? What are the best places, or what the best places are? Okay, so it goes back after the subject. Do you know what the best places to visit are? Okay guys, so that's it. Our list number 2 is also corrected. If you have any doubts, you can send me through email, or you can just post here, and I will, as quick as possible, I'm going to answer all your questions and doubts, okay? Thank you very much for watching. See you next class.